revision for CBSE board. So it does not mean this session should not be watched by people who are not giving board exams. So mind you, the chapters are the same. So in a way, it is like a one-shot series for all of you. So you can also watch this session. Okay. So yeah, so today we have 6 chapters for CBSE board exam, which is on 30th of May. So I hope you guys have done your physics paper well yesterday. So with the 6 chapters for your CBSE board second term are your human health and disease, microbes in human welfare, biotechnology principles and process, biotechnology applications, organism and population, biodiversity and conservation. So these are the 6 chapters. So today we begin with human health and disease. So I'll give a recap of the entire chapter, followed by we'll discuss some few questions which are important in this chapter. So Monday to Friday, please put all the other remaining 5 chapters in order, and next Saturday I'll be discussing a proper sample paper, so which would actually prepare you for the board exam on 30th of May. Hello W, yes, a very happy good evening. So thank you so much for joining my session today. So please do like, share and subscribe. Okay, so let's go. So since we have to give a quick revision of the entire chapter, so it's going to be a pretty long session, but I'll make sure I'll give it to you in short gist. Okay, so we'll begin. So common diseases in humans. So this chapter begins with the common diseases in humans. Okay, so I guess this is pretty slow. So we'll go with this. So these are the diseases that we talk about in the first part of the chapter, right? How many chapters going today? So today we'll do only one chapter, that is human health and disease. Hi Rose, hello, very happy good evening. So thank you so much for joining my session today. So please do like, share and subscribe. Okay, so this chapter, human health and disease, is a pretty big chapter compared to your next chapter, that is microbes in human welfare. So in human health and disease, so the chapter begins talking about what is disease, what is health. So you'll go through the definition of them, because sometimes they would ask you to define what is disease, what is health. So you'll also go through the Greek terms, which means that all 4 body fluids are very important. So please go through that introductory portion. And then what comes is the common diseases that affect humans. So we have some group of microorganisms which are pathogens, which can actually harm the host, right? So those pathogens cause infections, and what are those infections? They are broadly categorized as bacterial, viral, protozoan, helminthic and fungal disease. So we're going to talk about each of the infections in detail. So what is that you have to pay attention to these infections is that what are the symptoms, right? So you should know for each test, for each infection, what is the causative agent and what are the symptoms. So symptoms is an easy way to correlate your symptoms and understand and link it so that you will remember it well. Okay, so let's see how. So we'll start with the bacterial infection. So here you have 2 bacterial infection. One is typhoid, the other one is pneumonia, right? So these 2 are bacterial infection. Common cold is a viral infection. So malaria is a parasitic, malaria and amoebiasis is a protozoan infection. Ascaris, elephantiasis, ringworms. Okay, and the last one is your fungal disease, that is your ringworms, right? So all this is what we are going to discuss. So we'll be concentrating only on the infections that are given in your NCERT, so nothing extra. So here I move forward. So we'll talk about the first infection, that is the bacterial infection, that is typhoid. So when we talk about the important questions in the end, so as far as I have seen, as far as I have given question paper for my students in offline, and as far as I have seen the model papers, the sample papers, so from this chapter, this one question is always repeated. So probably if I have seen 5 papers, 3 out of 5 papers had this question. So what is the causative agent of typhoid and what are the symptoms of typhoid? So which means this typhoid is an important concept, and there's a high probability that questions from typhoid can come. Okay, so let's see what are they. So the organism which causes typhoid is Salmonella typhi. So guys, I have to understand, this is not MCQ like your term 1. So this is a theoretical paper wherein you have to write and prove your skills, not just use your brains and take the answer, right? The way you write perfectly, that will fetch you more marks. So first of all, please avoid your SMS language, your WhatsApp language when you're writing a theoretical paper. So that gives a really bad impression to the examiner. So probably where you have written the right answer also, the examiner gets angry and reduces your mark. So this is a psychological way that happens when you start correcting a particular student's paper, right? So one more thing, when it comes to biology, it is very particular that you will write the name of an organism according to binomial nomenclature. Salmonella typhi is the name of the organism which causes your typhoid. So this is your genus name, this is your species name. The first letter of the genus name should be in caps. Salmonella, S is capital, right? Typhi, which is the genus name, T is in small, right? So Salmonella typhi has to be written, and here since I have typed it, I have italicized it. But when you are writing it down with your hand, you will underline Salmonella separately, you will underline typhi separately. So it is very important. When you are writing Salmonella typhi in your paper, you will underline it not as a single word but as two different words. You will underline Salmonella separately, typhi separately. Okay, so this is a very basic request of a biologist, that you will write Salmonella typhi and underline it. Okay, so here we go. Fine? Yes. So what is the next thing? So this Salmonella typhi, it actually enters the intestine. So what is the target organ where this organism will go? The small intestine. So how it will enter? Through contaminated food and water. Right? So what are the symptoms? Again, this is very important, sustained fever. So first of all, don't be a monotonous robo or a horse to write whatever is given here. So typhoid is a fever. So I'm very sure 1 in 15 of us here have suffered from typhoid. So when I say typhoid is a fever, so you know what happens when you get fever, right? So you and I have at least at one point suffered from fever, be it viral fever, be it normal fever, any fever, right? So when fever comes, what happens? You're not able to eat, right? So loss of appetite. That is first one. So you will be able to relate rather than mugging up. So biology is not about all mugging up. So if a doctor mugs up everything and if you say he does not have a memory power, then you will not go to the doctor, right? So please change that myth. So first is loss of appetite. Every day you have headache, no? So whenever I ask you to study, you have headache. So headache is common in all the symptoms, don't worry, right? So typhoid is a fever, so which solves 3 symptoms for us, right? So since this enters the small intestine and small intestine is the target organ, so this causes stomach pain, right? And this causes constipation. So we are relating 2 symptoms with the target organ, that is small intestine. And of course, whenever you have even common cold, you feel weak, right? So weakness is the utmost factor. So weakness and headache you can add everywhere, okay? Sustained fever, headache, loss of appetite, stomach pain, constipation and weakness are the symptoms of your typhoid, right? Yes. So with this, we are done with typhoid. So how do I check if a person has fever by the normal method or by the normal imbalance in the body or by a bacterial infection or by a viral infection? If it's especially by Salmonella typhi, the test is confirmed by what is called as a Weidel test. Fine. So this is all that you need to remember for typhoid, and I'll tell you this slide is of utmost importance and there's high chance that you can get a question from this chapter. Okay, so here we go forward. So next is your pneumonia, right? So who causes pneumonia? There are 2 creatures who cause the pneumonia. Right, you're absolutely right. So what are the two organisms that cause pneumonia? The first one is Streptococcus pneumoniae, the other one is Haemophilus influenzae. So guys, you have to remember the name of microorganisms, so you can make any mnemonic, you can make any tricks for that, but ultimately I want you to remember it, okay? So Streptococcus pneumoniae, Haemophilus influenzae are the two creatures who cause pneumonia, okay? So what is pneumonia here? It infects the alveoli of the lungs. What is alveoli? Alveoli is the balloon-like structure where actual diffusion of gases happen, right? So that your bacteria begins to grow. So the alveolar space is very less because the bacteria starts growing inside. So there is no possibility that normal diffusion is happening, okay? So what are the symptoms? Again, it's fever. So when you have fever, you have chills, you tend to get cold, etc. So since this is affected or targeted with the respiratory system, please write cough, and as I told you, headache is common. You can even include weakness here, it does not matter, right? So pneumonia is done. Streptococcus pneumoniae, Haemophilus influenzae. So these are the two bacteria. See, normally your alveoli is a balloon-like structure, so that all the surface area of the alveoli is involved in diffusion. But when this bacteria starts growing, there's little space for diffusion to actually happen. So you can sometimes even have shortness of breath. You can write, it's not wrong, okay? Yes, but please write the symptoms so that it has a link. Don't write diarrhea for pneumonia. So that does not make any sense, no? So please relate and write the symptoms, okay? Yeah. So apart from that, so your NCERT discusses only two bacterial disease, but apart from that, you have a plethora of bacterial disease which you can actually go through. Sometimes if they ask you something in the case study, it can be easy for you, okay? Yes? Ma'am, teaching style is very good, but why they have less views? Because people don't understand English, alright? Anyway, Shashank, thank you so much for joining my session. So please do like, share and subscribe. Okay, so here we go, other bacterial diseases. So cholera is also a bacterial disease. So it is caused by Vibrio cholerae. Okay, so diarrheal disease and dysentery are two completely different ones. They are distinct ones. Okay, so this is caused by E. coli and Shigella to some extent. Diphtheria, Corynebacterium diphtheriae. So guys, please pay attention. I have not underlined the binomial name because I have italicized it. But when you write, you cannot write in italics. Don't tell me, ma'am, I've written in italics too, so I'm not underlining. No, when you are doing it handwritten, you have to underline it separately, okay? Right. So whooping cough or pertussis. So this whooping cough can be sometimes known as the 100-day cough. So this is caused by Bordetella pertussis. So then you have tuberculosis, Mycobacterium tuberculosis. So then you have your tetanus. So please pay attention. Tetanus and tetany are two different things. So tetanus is Clostridium tetani. Then you have plague, Yersinia pestis. Then you have leprosy, Microbacterium leprae. This is just for your extra understanding. Okay, so here we go forward. So next we have viral disease. As usual, your NCERT does not highlight all the viral disease. Only thing that has been mentioned is your common cold. Right? So common cold, all of you know, it is caused by a family of virus called as the rhinovirus. So rhinovirus causes your common cold. So apart from this, what are the other viral disease that have a chance to come to the surface is your coronavirus, is your COVID-19 infection, which is caused by your coronavirus. So they can ask you this. So your SARS, your coronavirus belongs to a family of viruses called as the SARS virus, right? So it can cause you COVID-19 infection. So it is severe acute respiratory syndrome. But apart from that, we again have a shoal of diseases. So you have dengue fever, flaviriovirus. So there's a myth. So when I say dengue, students say it is caused by mosquito. Guys, mosquito is a vector. So there's a difference between a causative agent and a vector. For example, when you see a movie, so someone goes and hits the hero, it does not mean he's the enemy. The enemy is the fellow who's hitting, his boss is sitting elsewhere, right? So it is something like that, okay? So dengue fever, it's the 𝗉𝐵𝐴virus. So you have the mumps, that is the paramyxovirus. Then you have the measles, this is the rubella virus, chickenpox, zoster virus, smallpox, variola virus, poliomyelitis, poliovirus, and then swine flu, swine influenza, that is H1N1. So I don't want you to mug up. At least if you go through each one very slowly, at least in one part of the brain it will be stored, and if a case study question comes, yes, you will remember. So this was caused by a virus, so the diagnostic test will not be Widal test. At least in that way you will be able to correlate. Alright. So hi event horizon, yes, a very happy good evening. So thank you for joining my session after a pretty long gap. So I hope you're doing well. Yes, so please don't forget to like, share and subscribe. So now we go to the next part, that is malaria. So we come after the bacterial and the viral disease, we come to the protozoal disease now, right? So we have two protozoal disease. What are they? Malaria and amoebiasis. Okay, fine. So protozoans species which causes malaria are Plasmodium. So SPP is species. Okay, so you don't have to write Plasmodium SPP and underline, no, it is not required. But when you write Plasmodium vivax, you have to underline. When you write Plasmodium malaria, you have to underline. When you write Plasmodium falciparum, you have to underline. Okay, so we have three types of protoplasmodium, which are protozoans which causes your malaria. So of the three types of your Plasmodium falciparum is malignant. Malignant means severe. It can even lead to the death of an individual. Okay, yes. Thank you event horizon. So this is how your Plasmodium enters your RBC. Okay, so here we move forward. So here the vector is a mosquito, right? The causative agent is Plasmodium, but the vector here is again a mosquito. So who is the mosquito here? So we usually say female Anopheles mosquito, the favorite of all among us, right? So we are going to talk about the life cycle of your Plasmodium. So your Plasmodium has two hosts. One is primary, one is secondary. So who is the primary host? The mosquito. Because initially it reaches the sporocyte stage inside the mosquito. And then in the humans it just multiplies. So we are the secondary host for the Plasmodium, right? Okay. So what happens? So this parasite, this Plasmodium falciparum, so this has a particular stage in its life. Just like you and I have a stage called as the teenage stage, the adolescent stage, the childhood stage, the Plasmodium also has a particular stage in its life that is called as the sporozoid stage. This sporozoid stage is the one that causes infection. So initially the Plasmodium is inside the mosquito, and it reaches the sporozoid stage inside the mosquito. And when this mosquito takes a blood meal of a human, this sporocyte enters the human's blood. It has entered a new place. So from school you go to college, right? So something similar to that. So it enters the human blood. So it quickly multiplies, it extends its progeny in the liver, and once it has done its work in the liver, it moves into the blood circulation. So in the blood circulation, it targets the RBC. RBC is enucleate. Apart from hemoglobin, it does not have anything else. It has no organelles, nothing, right? So there's a lot of space for this particular sporozoid to enjoy its life. So it enters the RBC. Once it enters the RBC and it multiplies and multiplies and it produces its gametes, what happens is that the RBC begins to rupture. It cannot tolerate it anymore. When the RBC ruptures, a particular toxin called as hemozoin comes out. So when this particular rupture and the toxin is released, that is when you have malarial fevers, and this malarial fever can be intermittent. It is not continuous, right? Okay, so now they are rupturing the RBC and they are coming into the bloodstream. So in the blood you had RBC, now they are opening the RBC and coming into the blood. So now they are present in the gametocyte stage, right? So this gametocyte stage is now again ready to enter inside the mosquito. So fortunately another mosquito comes and bites the human and the gametocyte stage enters the mosquito. So inside the gut of the mosquito, the gametes, the male and the female gametes fuse. When the male and the female gametes fuse, they again form a zygote in the mid-epithelium of the mosquito. Again they mature into an adult, right? So they become adult and they are stored inside the salivary glands of the mosquito as sporozoites. Okay? Yes? It will not actually lead to anemia, it will actually lead to fever. Here it is not only killing RBC. So if it has to lead to anemia, so that would be like really low hemoglobin. So it is not with respect to killing your RBC. So probably if it's a very severe case of malarial fever, then you can have anemia because a lot of RBCs are killed. Okay? Yes? If question saying W, so please put your question again. I'm sorry, I missed to read it. So please type it again, I'll answer. Yeah. So this is the life cycle of a plasmodium. So first important question I told you was from typhoid. The second important question will be the life cycle of your plasmodium. Fine? Yes? So please make a note of it. Please go through your textbook. Please go through this diagram. So it is very important. For 3 marks, if they ask you to write the life cycle of a plasmodium, you will make sure you will write it in this order. For which you do not have to draw the hand and all. You can just say a human vector, right? But please make sure this flow chart is there. Okay? Yes. Okay, Shashank. Ma'am, but sporozoites replace the hemoglobin in RBC. That's why it leads to anemia. No, it does not replace the RBC. It ruptures the RBC. Once the RBC is ruptured, there's no need for something to become an alternative to hemoglobin, right? Yes. If question says describe the life cycle, you will describe it like this. You will write it has 2 hosts, one is human, one is mosquito. So sorry, you will say the primary is mosquito, the secondary is human, and you will write in the mosquito what happens, in the human what happens, and then you will put a rough figure in the side. Okay, so if they ask you like this, give a detailed life cycle of a plasmodium with the diagram. So you draw this diagram and in this diagram itself you write everything, or if you want to first write 3-4 points and then draw, you can draw. But you don't have to draw this entire hand liver. So instead write a blood meal in human liver and then write down. You don't have to draw exactly. Fine? Clear? So we go to the next part. Yeah, the next protozoan disease is 𝗵𝗵𝗶 histolytica, the organism. The disease is amoebiasis. The first protozoan disease was your malaria. The second protozoan disease is your amoebiasis. It is caused by 𝗵𝗵𝗶 histolytica. It's again a protozoan parasite in the large intestine. So here the target organ is large intestine, whereas in your typhoid it was your small intestine, right? So which causes amoebiasis, which is amoebic dysentery. The symptoms include constipation. Hold on, it is affecting your large intestine. So we are going to relate the symptoms. Yes? Okay, so first is constipation. Suppose imagine after exams you went out and had all the street foods which were half cooked, which were oily and all, right? So it can lead to constipation. When you have constipation, it leads to abdominal pain and cramps, stools with excess mucus and blood clots. So this is your symptom of your amoebic dysentery. Fine? So who acts as mechanical? Yeah, please put headache and weakness. It's not wrong. It is genuine. These two are the actual causes for all the diseases. Even today, I have no problem. Headache is common, right? Weakness is common right after COVID infection. Okay, so houseflies here act as mechanical carriers. So through houseflies also you can catch this infection, and it serves to transmit the parasite from the fecus of infected person to the other or to the food. So here housefly is an important concept. So let's quickly move forward. The next one is Ascarias. So this Ascariasis, Elephantiasis, they are all helminthic diseases. Helminthic diseases means they are caused by worms. Helminths, Platyhelminthes, Ascarihelminthes, they are different phyla in your animal kingdom, right? So Ascariasis is caused by the roundworm Ascaris, right? So blockage of the internal passage, so this will actually block the internal passage to hollow organs, okay? So please remember the disease is Ascariasis and it is caused by Ascaris. Don't interchange both, which students commonly do. So when they say write the causative agent or name any two helminthic diseases, so the disease name is Ascariasis, the causative agent is Ascaris. Don't write one of the helminthic diseases Ascaris. That's wrong. They won't give you marks. Okay. So please make tiny mistakes like this is where you lose marks. The next helminthic diseases is your Elephantiasis. So this Elephantiasis also has another name, that is Filariasis. Okay. For everything that you write, make sure you learn the spellings. Sometimes the simplest of English words spelling also you guys make it wrong. Continuous, spontaneously. A lot of spellings you guys tend to miss because you have lost this art of writing detailed answers. So please don't make that happen. Suppose if one spelling mistake comes to the attention of the examiner who's correcting, everywhere he'll be cautious. Right? So please make sure you don't do it. So please make sure you don't do it with a simple English language or neither with biology. So when you're writing Filariasis, don't write as many S, as many R's, as many I's as you want. It is Filariasis. Okay, write it to the point. So here the genital organs are affected, especially the lymphatic vessels of the lower limbs are affected. So see, so here you have lymphatic vessels which belong to a network of lymphatic system. So can you see inside the lymphatic vessel how many filarial worms are stored? So this as such decreases the weight of the body. It hangs down very heavy. Right? So this is your Elephantiasis. The last of the diseases is your ringworms. Okay? So many fungi belonging to the genera Microsporum, Trichophyton and Epidermophyton. So the genera is MET. Remember, Jab We Met. Even now we remember what song, what step, which dress Kareena Kapoor wore in Jab We Met. And why can't we remember Microsporum, Trichophyton and Epidermophyton? So one more thing, so this question also comes. So when I told you I was researching on some papers, so out of, you can say out of 20% of the papers had this question. So some students write only the first two genera, they forget the third one. Right? Elephantiasis solution, so people should not live near mosquito prone area, live near water stagnant areas, so they should live in highly hygienic conditions, they should eat hygienic food, etc. Okay, W? Right. So they forget to write the last genera or the middle one or the first one, they don't write all the three genera. In that case, you will not get the full marks. Right? So if you write it fully. And only 6 chapters. If it's tough, then NEET is going to be really challenging for you. Okay. So Microsporum, Trichophyton and Epidermophyton are responsible. Okay. So here what are the symptoms? The symptoms can be slightly away from all the symptoms we have correlated so far. Appearance of dry, scaly lesions on various parts of the body such as skin, nails and scalp. Okay, the lesions are accompanied by intense itching. Lesions are nothing but wounds or rashes. Fine. So heat and moisture help the fungus grow, which makes them thrive in skin folds such as those in the groin and between the toes. Groin is towards your thigh region. Fine. Yes. So with this, okay, so ringworms are generally acquired from the soil or by using towels, clothes or even the comb of infected individuals. They say, there are certain things that you should never share. So one is your comb, but half the people do not know that. They tend to share comb. So you're not supposed to share comb. So with this, we come to the end of your diseases so far, right? But there are certain diagnostic tests which you can remember. It's not compulsory, but it's my duty to show it to you. Okay. So just like Widal test is used for typhoid, you have Mantoux test which is used for tuberculosis, Shishak's test is used for diphtheria, Weissenstein test is for plague, Tornick test is for dengue. So in the starting, when I said this session is for both CBSE as well as NEET students, this is the reason. So you have a bit a way out of the information as well. So please others can note this as well. So now we are coming to the next part of the chapter, that is immunity. So long we were talking about the diseases that trouble us. Now how is our body going to fight against them? So the ability of our body to fight against these pathogens is your immunity, right? So we have two types of immunity. One is innate, one is adaptive immunity. So innate, it is present at the time of birth. It was there since I was born. So it came with me, right? So it is a non-specific type of defense. It is not very specific. It is very general. So whatever problem you have, your body produces innate immunity. It is not very, very specific, okay? And it is present at the time of birth, okay? Yeah, so let's move forward. So let's quickly talk about the two types of immunity. So I am talking, or I am briefing about immunity. So you have innate immunity, you have adaptive immunity. So innate is present at the time of birth. So adaptive is also known as acquired. It is acquired through the lifetime of an organism. So innate immunity has 4 barriers, okay? So along with your typhoid, your plasmodium life cycle, so this barriers of innate immunity is very important. So there are 4 barriers of your innate immunity. So let's see what are they. First is physical barrier, second one is your physiological barrier, third one is cellular, and the fourth one is cytokine. So it is C square P square. Cytokine, cellular, physical, physiological. Okay, so this is very, very, very important with respect to your CBSE board as well as with respect to your NEET exam. Okay, so when I say physical barrier, so there is physically something that is stopping the entry of pathogens inside my body. So that physical barrier is my skin. So skin is very thick. So it is also one of the reasons that we are prone to less number of infection, because your skin does not allow many microorganisms to penetrate inside. So when I say physical barrier, please correlate. Don't write physiological barrier. Okay. So physical barrier is your skin. So physical is something that I can see, right? So you see physical, you say mental. So physical presence and mental presence. So please correlate with the English terms. Don't do just mugging up. That's not going to help. Okay. So physical barrier is skin. So mucous coating of the epithelium lining the respiratory, gastrointestinal and the urogenital tracts. So everywhere there is an opening to the external surface, your skin comes into picture. And everywhere your body is open to the outer surface, you have a mucous coating which prevents your body from the passage of microorganism. That is your physical barrier. Okay. Yes. Then the next one is your physiological barrier. So we say no at physiological pH. The physiological pH of blood is 7.4. So physiological. So we are talking about blood. So acid in the stomach. So we are talking about fluids here. So physiological pH. So we are talking about the various pH in your body. So the acid in your stomach, acidic pH does not allow the growth of Salmonella typhi. So saliva in the mouth, so this has alkaline pH. So tears from the eyes, it has lysozymes which prevents the growth of bacteria, right? So the third one is cellular barrier. So some cells are going to kill the pathogens. Who are those cells? Leukocytes. Leukocytes are nothing but your WBCs, right? So you have 2 branches of your leukocytes. I hope you remember. So you cannot tell me you forgot. I have taught you before. So when I talk about leukocytes or WBCs, I have 2 parts. One is your A granulocytes The other one is your granulocytes. Right? So A granulocytes is of two types where the granules are absent. So this includes your lymphocytes and your monocytes. Fine. So granulocytes are of three types. One is B, basophil, eosinophil and neutrophil. Right? So these lymphocytes and monocytes play a very important role in immunity. Okay? So cellular barriers, certain types of leukocytes like your monocytes, but your monocytes have another name. The other name is polymorphonuclear leukocytes. So PMNL. Polymorpho, poly is many, morpho is morphology. They can take up many amount of external morphology. So once again, poly means many, morpho means morphology. So morphology is the external appearance. So your monocytes can take up any types, right? So polymorphonuclear leukocytes, which can be in turn your neutrophils. Fine. So we had two types. Granulocytes had BEN, basophil, eosinophil, neutrophil. So this neutrophil, the nucleus of the neutrophil can be of any shape. So that is why this term polymorphonuclear leukocytes. Fine. Yes, hello Shubham sir. So thank you so much for joining my session today. So please do like, share and subscribe. The last one is your cytokine barrier. Cytokine is a group of chemical molecules, okay? So if one cell is dying, so this will activate or alert the other cell through a chemical that is called a cytokine. So you have a lot of cytokines. So you have a book related only to cytokines. There are so many. But one example, suppose if this cell is killed because of a virus, when this cell is dying, it will send a particular type of cytokine that is called as interferon. So when interferons are secreted, it is understood there is a viral infection. There is another type of cytokine that is called as interleukin. So interleukin is secreted by the WBC when there is some other type of infection. So cytokine is a range of molecules. Fine. So these four barriers are of utmost importance. So please don't go without knowing these. Fine. Yes. Okay. So we move forward. So I guess all the other things that are yet to come are very easy. Adaptive immunity. So what is so special in adaptive immunity? Memory. Right. So what happens? So who plays a role in adaptive immunity? You have this lymphocytes which are a type of A granulocytes. Right? So you have two type of lymphocytes, B cell, and you have another one that is T cell. So this is B because the origin is bone marrow. This is T because the origin is thymus. Okay? So you have two types of B cells. One is the plasma cell. The other one is the memory cell. Plasma cell produces antibodies. So antigens are written as AGS. So antigens are the foreign materials. To fight your antigens, your body produces antibodies. So who produces the antibodies? The B cell. Okay. So T cell is of three types. So I have a doubt. Can I say cytokinin is a Xerox copy? No. No. Cytokinin comes in plants, don't confuse that in humans. Cytokinin is a type of plant growth hormone, okay? So you have three types of T cells. First one is the TH cell, T helper cell, then TC cell. So H stands for helper, C stands for cytotoxic. And then you have TR cell, that is T regulatory cell. So T helper cells actually helps your B cells to produce more of antibodies. TC cells attack cells that are suspicious of carrying antigen. Okay. T regulator cells bring down the concentration of T cells after infection. At the time of infection, T cell concentration is high, but after the infection, it has to come down. Then it is a signal of something very, very severe. So it brings the concentration of T cells down. So with respect to adaptive immunity, you have to remember these two. So there are two types of immune response, primary immune response and secondary immune response. So primary immune response is slow, whereas secondary immune response is high and intensified because of the memory. Okay. So one more thing, your B cell produces the antibodies into the bloodstream. So that is why B cell produces or induces HMI. What is HMI? Humoral mediated immunity. Humor is blood in Greek terms. So since they are releasing the antibodies into the blood, they are stimulating the immune system in the bloodstream. So that is why it is humoral mediated immunity. Fine. So since the T cell actually attacks or stimulates the other cells, they are called as the CMI. They are called as cell mediated immunity, because they stimulate the other cell, right? So these are the two things that you should remember when you talk about acquired immunity. Fine? Okay. So I have told you about this, okay. So now talking about the structure of your antigen. Structure of your antibody. So your antibodies are produced by B lymphocytes. So your antibodies are also known as immunoglobulins, which we write as IgS. So I have told you, you have 5 types of immunoglobulins. Remember it as game D. So immunoglobulin G, A, M, E, D, gamma, alpha, mu, epsilon and delta. You have 5 antibodies. So you can write it as IgG, G for gamma. Then you have IgA, that is alpha, IgM, so this is mu, right? Then IgE, this is epsilon. You write it like this. Right? Then you have IgD, that is delta. So which is present in your colostrum? IgA. Which can pass through your placenta? IgG. The structure of the antibody is like this. So you have 2 chains. One is in green color, one is in blue color. The one in green color is heavy. You can see it has the upper portion as well as the lower portion, so it is heavy. And the blue portion is only half, so it is light. So we have 2 heavy chains and we have 2 light chains. So I write H2 and L2. Fine? Yes? So this portion which is circulated in the pink color is the same for all the 5 types of immunoglobulins. Only this portion changes for each antibody because this is what binds to the antigen. So this is the antigen binding site. Fine? Clear? The structure of immunoglobulin is clear? So I move forward to the next topic. So active and passive immunity. So what is active immunity? So when the host produces antibodies, it is active immunity. Right? So when the antibody is given from outside, it is passive immunity. The basic difference. Active and passive is also equally important. So when the immune system of the host produces antibodies, it is active immunity. When someone else directly gives the antibody, it is passive immunity. It is ready-made. Right? So when you do something on your own, you learn the pros and cons, right? So when your body is producing your antibody, so this takes some time, but it also produces memory later. Whereas in passive immunity, the memory is not there, but you have immediate effect. Here you have gradual effect. So please go through the difference. It is also very important. Fine? Yeah. So what is vaccination? So which type of immunity they use in vaccinization? So they use active immunity in vaccines, right? They give you the inactivated portion of a particular antigen which causes an immune reaction in our body, and our body produces antibodies, right? Okay, so vaccination follows active immunity. So there are certain diseases for which passive immunity is given. So like when you have tetanus, hepatitis infection, so when there is a snake bite, so you go for passive immunity, right? So there are certain vaccinations where you use recombinant technologies. For example, if I am taking a particular vaccine from a fungi, but I cultivate it in yeast, that is recombinant technology, which we'll talk about in biotech, right? So please remember hepatitis B vaccine. So hepatitis B is caused by a virus, but the vaccine was produced by culturing it in yeast, right? Okay. So next you have allergy. So the exaggerated immune response is allergy. The one which causes allergy are called as allergens. So in allergens you have IgE produced. So what are the possible allergens is given here. At the time of allergy you have the release of histamine and serotonin. Okay? Yeah. So we move further. So you have something called as autoimmunity. So when your immune cells destroy your own self cells, so now my immunity is strong, meaning my body can fight the foreign agents. But what will happen when my body starts fighting against my own cells? It is like the same kingdom people fighting with the same king, right? So that is harmful. So that is autoimmunity. So example is rheumatoid arthritis, myasthenia gravis. You have a lot of diseases, but here your memory is lost, or your ability to differentiate between the self and non-self is lost, okay? So we go further, immune system. So we have immune system. The entire system comprises of lymphoidal organs. You have primary lymphoidal organs, secondary lymphoidal organs. You have tissues, malt, galt. Then you have cells like your macrophages, T lymphocytes, B lymphocytes. You have soluble molecules like antibodies. All these function as your immune system. So what do? They recognize foreign antigens, respond to these, and they remember them. They also play a role in allergic disease, autoimmune, organ transplant, etc. So who are the lymphoidal organs? Primary and secondary. So primary is your bone marrow and thymus. Secondary is your spleen, lymph, Peyer's patches, tonsils, etc. So you have your malt. So please go through what is the percent there. Right? So the next one is AIDS. So people today also do not know the full form of AIDS. So I guess I know my beautiful students who have written the wrong abbreviation, right? So AIDS stands for acquired immunodeficiency syndrome. Again, the spelling is very, very important. So the deficiency of the immune system because your T helper cells are getting affected. So when a person is tested positive for HIV, it does not mean he or she will have AIDS. Prolonged infection of HIV leads to AIDS, okay? Yes? Yeah. So the full form of AIDS is this, the causative agent is this. So how does AIDS spread from one person to the other person? Sexual contact with infected person. Again, these 4 points are very, very important. Then transfusion of contaminated blood and blood products, sharing infected needles, intravenous drug abusers, then infected mother to the child. So I guess you know how the replication of the AIDS virus happens. A virus will insert its genetic material. So this genetic material, if it's RNA, it will convert it into DNA, that becomes your cDNA, and it will get integrated with the host chromosome and it will produce the viral proteins, right? So your HIV belongs to a family of proteins called as retrovirus. So retrovirus is the entire family which is an enveloped virus, okay? So it actually attacks your macrophages and then it kills your T helper cells. The next topic that we have is your cancer cells, right? So cancer cells actually, uncontrolled growth is cancer cells, right? So cancer cells do not follow this property of contact inhibition. So when a cell is growing and the moment it touches the neighboring cell, it stops growing, thinking, okay, this is only my space. But a cancer cell does not have that sense. It keeps on growing like this. right? So uncontrolled growth is cancer. So there are also cancer genes in our body which we call as proto-oncogenes. So carcinogens are the ones which induces cancer. So you have rays which can like ionizing radiations and non-ionizing radiations which can cause cancer. So I told you about oncogenes. Yeah, so what are the ways by which you can detect cancer? This is also very important in today's scenario because we always lose the battle with cancer, right? So biopsy, histopathological studies, you use computed tomography, you use surgeries, etc., right? So what can be the possible treatment? Radiotherapy, chemotherapy, immunotherapy, you can mix everything. So the last topic for this evening is your drugs. So drugs is where students get confused, right? So they really don't know which comes from where, which is used for what. And every student has this trigger to try every drug, right? Alright, so all you have to remember is these examples. So which drug belongs to which type and where does it come from? What is the source which is given in your textbook? Fine. So you have the sedatives and tranquilizers. Sedatives which makes you forget, which takes you into a state where you don't know where you are or who you are. Tranquilizers, one which calms you down. So opiate narcotics which are pain forgiver, which can make you forget the pain, right? Stimulants which can make you work more, like you have coffee before the night, the day before the night of your exam. Hallucinogens which can make you having, you can hallucinogen thinking this person was here, I saw this incident but actually it did not happen. So please remember the names, the type and the effect it has, right? And also in your textbook the source is given, so please go through the source. Okay, so with this I have covered this entire chapter. So the questions that I find important in this chapter is the symptoms of typhoid, the causative agent of typhoid, the causative agents of diseases. So please make sure you remember all the diseases. Innate immunity barrier, you have 4, right? Yes, so you want screenshot of this page, you can take. So you can talk about the cytokine, cellular, physical and physiological barriers, right? And you can talk about how AIDS is spread from one person to the other person, the drugs and their source and their origin, right? So that is all the important question, the possible questions that can come from this chapter for your board, right? So with this we come to the end of this revision. So once again, for all those who are preparing for NEET, so please purchase our books. So if you find the hard copy pretty expensive, you can log into Google Books, right? And I also told you about this NEET revision series, so please try practicing the questions. So please, it will help you manage time. And please inform this or spread the word to your juniors, your siblings who are entering class 11. Our course starts on 1st June. They don't have to pay, they can avail 90% scholarship for which they have to avail or attempt the CPSAT test, right? So if you genuinely find the session very interesting and useful, so please do like, share and subscribe. I'll meet you on Monday at 5:30 talking or revising your microbes in human welfare. Until then, so it's up to you guys to continue your preparation. Enjoy your weekend. Stay tuned. Thank you.